Hello there, and welcome back to another Villa Volcano stream here on Twitch, where we're going to talk about the most recent episode of the not the Bad Batch tonight, Mandalorian. We're about to watch the Bad Batch, but yes, the Mandalorian, and that was a pretty exciting episode.
Yeah, it's a very fun episode, and we will talk about Mandalorian tonight. We'll do another stream and we talk about Bad Batch. Tomorrow night we'll have to shift our schedule around just a little bit to accommodate the fact that we're getting 2 Star Wars episodes dropping on Wednesday nights each week now. But that gives us an opportunity to do a couple of streams each week, starting off with the Mando episode.
So we've both picked Mandalorian characters to be running around tonight. We thought that was fairly fitting given the episode. And we thought we'd go and do some heroics on Taris. Taris is a planet that, if you've ever played Knights of the Old Republic, you will know very well. But it is a planet that was bombed extensively. So this is sort of a couple of hundred years later after the bombing. So it's sort of mostly in ruins, overgrown sort of things. We thought that giving the location of tonight's episode of The Mandalorian, that would be sort of fitting because, well, yes, we very much hope that you have watched The Mandalorian, episode 18. So we will be getting full on into spoilers very shortly. So thanks for joining us as we recap that episode and talk about all the exciting new plot lines and developments and stuff like that. So I guess we'll get stuck into it. So let's go start with the Fathers of Taris. That's
Sure.
a quick one.
Yeah, so the ruins of this planet are also rife with all sorts of nasty creatures, which I guess is also apt. Hey, so my Mandalorian's gear is roughly Beskar inspired. What's your gear actually called?
My one is I'm gonna miss the elevator. Merciless Seeker. Oh no, there I am. Yeah, which kind of, I like it. It has an organic look to it.
Yeah.
Sort of like she's carved it out of, well, she's kind of got like a metallic-y helmet, but she's put like a sort of a skull and bones over it, which I think is kind of fun. I tend to give her lots of creatures. She's a very sort of creature-inspired Mandalorian.
Right, so episode, I guess in many ways, well, we knew where the overall season, we had a feeling where the overall season was heading, and this definitely took us in that direction. I think we got to there in some ways a lot faster than we thought it might.
Yes. I do just have to apologize in advance. This is not a character I have played in a while, so I'm just button mashing a little bit as we talk.
What spec is she?
She is a Powertech. I don't know what skill tree she is.
Okay.
Off the top of my head. Yeah. I gotta practice my Powertechs a little more.
She's a little bit down your chain of the hierarchy of characters.
Yes, she's actually a relatively new character for me. She was created because I saw this gear and I was like, yes, I need a character that's going to wear that gear full time. So as soon as I could afford the gear, I created a new character just for it.
Just before we get into the episode of The Mandalorian, you've actually got some other characters that have a Mandalorian theme too, haven't you? I've only got one essentially.
Well, yes, that's because I just generally roll a lot of characters. They added what is essentially the Armorer's gear to the game. So I created a character called Beskar, inspired by the fact that she forges Beskar in The Mandalorian. So I'm still leveling her up though, so I haven't played her quite as much.
You'll have to level.
I know.
Yeah, we can only play level 80 when we're streaming, but
yeah, she's so close.
Finish her off so that we can bring her into the mix.
Yeah.
Quite cool. So yeah, that episode of Mandalorian, episode 2, is entitled The Mines of Mandalore.
Yep.
Started off on Tatooine, on Boonta Eve, no less.
Yes, that was fun.
So that's where the fireworks that we saw in the trailer came from.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if what we were seeing was pod racing. We suddenly saw something moving fast.
I think it's just that they were speeders. They weren't pods. I think it was just locals getting into the bit of a doing culture because of the racing vibe that was going on.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of tourists in town because Kelly was pretty much outlining her schemes to cooperating with the Jawas to fleece tourists of repairs on their speeders.
Yeah, she was basically getting them to take stuff off and then put it back on, and to make it look like she had done something to the ship. And she was like, make it look a little different and I'll pay you extra. We'll go to spilling chemicals. So that was fun. As always with The Mandalorian, I was scrambling trying to write down notes because often in these episodes there's so much and I'll never remember all the details, and don't often have the time to watch it twice before streaming to sort of quickly remember everything.
No, that was a slightly longer episode. Last week we were pretty tight at half an hour, and someone was coming in on another 3/4 of an hour, so that was nice.
Yeah. So yes, we opened up on Tatooine, and it was fun to see Pelimoto arguing with a Rodian. The Rodian, I don't think was subtitled. I certainly didn't notice it.
No.
Just sort of yelling. He was dressed kind of fancy. In the background, we see the BD droid, her pit droids. We see Treadwell. She references Bunta Eve. We see R5D4, who was, of course, introduced in A New Hope. So I think that's fun. And it turns out that he is... oh, that thing's evading. Okay. Oh. How did you get that to fight you?
I just hit him hard enough.
But it's fun to see him back again. We've got a bit of a reference in, I want to say Book of Boba Fett, but I'm not entirely sure where we first saw him.
With Pelimoto anyway. I think he has been visible in
all of the scenes with her?
Most of the time,
Yeah.
And she specifically spoke of getting him from the Jawas this time round.
Yes, but she also talked about him sort of coming back from his time in the rebellion.
In the Republic.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting note. I don't know how that would necessarily have come about, or if there's like a sort of a novel or comic reference that I am not aware of. But yeah, I'm definitely going to look that up. So we see the Jawas kind of coming back in to put the pieces back on the speeder to sort of complete her scheme. The Mando arrives in his N1, and then we get this cute moment where she's obviously hoping to see Grogu again, and Grogu pops up and does this cool force leap into Pelimoto's arms. I thought that was really quite cute. We're seeing him clearly demonstrating that he has gotten a lot better. That he's not quite as helpless as perhaps when she first met him, when she sort of treated him like an infant, that he needed to be fed and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see his progression. One thing that we noted was that she is missing a tooth in this, and I'd have to go back and check, but I think that was from the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, the final episode, the speeder chase.
Yeah.
When the Rancor was rampaging. I'm 90% certain, I could be wrong, but I'm 90% certain that we saw that happen. Yeah,
I'm thinking we need to have to keep going back and watch everything like 3 times before we remember all the details. And this is obviously where Mando wants to find the droid part that he needs to basically reboot IG.
Yeah, I was really hoping.
Yeah.
The way they teased that, it sounded like he was pretty dead keen on having IG specifically before he went to Mandalore. So unfortunately the Jawas weren't able to help him out there, but I'm a big fan of R5D4. He's very cool.
We traded one cool droid for another, and we did get a little bit of IG in that first episode.
I mean,
he's not completely out of the question, just probably not for the next couple of episodes. Yeah, like we know that theoretically he can be rebuilt. We just need a specific droid part. Pally basically points out that that she can't get the droid or the Jawas or whatever, and is basically trying to get him to buy. You can kind of like the R5 is not subtitled, but she's trying to sell him like some sort of hero of the rebellion, and he's great for like dangerous quests and stuff like that. And he looks like he's sort of quaking, like he's nervous and scared, which is so cute.
Decades now.
Yeah, but like I don't know if she was just lying about him being in the rebellion.
I don't know. I mean, like she said, he is an astromech.
Or whether basically he was like so briefly in the ownership of Luke Skywalker, and therefore that makes him part of the rebellion. You know?
Because most of what she was saying was true. He is an astromech, so he is designed to pilot small vessels, not vessels with actual native hyperspace capabilities or hyperspace navigation capabilities. So it's only small vehicles that need astromech or hyperspace navigation, which are generally fighters.
Yes, X-wings and the like. But I thought it was kind of cute. So I've written notes here that I don't understand, so I'll skip over that. And then
try
it says he's I've put he's in the N1 droid part, so I've got two sentences there. So I was typing.
Droid port.
Yes. Okay. Port. Okay. I was like, thought I was halfway writing about something about the droid part and the N1. So yes.
No, she specifically mentions that they have to replace the droid port, the droid socket.
Yeah.
So you can't technically have R5 and Grogu sort of interchangeably using that space.
Yeah. So he'll probably have to go back. If he wants the port sort of switched back, I guess, if he wants Grogu to have his little dome back, and not to use the port. And then we see fireworks over Tatooine as he's flying away, which I think is fun.
And then it was title cards. So pretty much that sequence.
So yes, the title was The Mines of Mandalore, and I was like, wow, I thought we might have had like a little side quest, you know, like that they would draw out. You know, he's going to go on a little side quest for Peli to see if they can go find a droid part or something like that, you know, like they'd be stretched out just a little bit. But I guess there's something really cool in the works for the story to jump straight to Mandalore so quickly. And then we kind of get Mando talking to Grogu. He does a lot of talking in this episode.
Yeah, a lot of exposition.
So I was like, just trying to like scramble stuff down because he's talking a lot more than usual.
Basically narrates the whole story up until Bo-Katan shows up.
Yeah.
Din Djarin does all the heavy lifting in terms of explanation.
So he says, as they're looking out sort of over the planet, we can sort of see like lightning or something like that, sort of under the clouds. It's stormy. And he says it was once green and beautiful. He's never been there. He grew up on Concordia, which is the moon. Yep. And he points out that Bo-Katan lives on a different thing, and thankfully points this out in a way that Grogu is able to commit that to memory for later on in the episode. Okay. Highway to Destruction. So I was really keen to see how they sort of approach this, you know, whether it was going to be quite drawn out, because they've kind of been building this up that he needs to go, that he's been sent on the quest to sort of redeem himself. Flying through the atmosphere, we see rain, wind, it's very stormy. Passing through the clouds, we finally get sort of our first view, which I believe was shown in the trailers.
Yeah, and it was kind of implying that all of the interference and hazardous weather and such like was superficial, and once you break through it, there was calm.
So if you had been just looking at the planet from space, then you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm not going down there.
And they certainly reiterated that once they were on the planet's surface, outwards communication would be impossible because of the electromagnetic interference from the fusion bombs. So yeah, all setting things up for necessary plot points later on the whole.
Yeah. So yeah, he says fusion bombs from the Purge are messing with communications. And so they land. We see the rock formations that kind of look like, very much look like the sort of green crystal that he had in the very first episode that was apparently from Mandalore, that had the sort of Mandalorian inscription on it. Sort of like lots of dark rocks and green sort of crystal. Because we see Boba Fett reference that it was bombed to glass. So it's kind of fun seeing that.
Well, tragic but fun.
Well, like I wasn't sure how quickly we would see, that, or like it's just neat to see it sort of rendered,
And how literal he was.
Yeah.
It really was like the surface of the planet was a sort of a shell of molten material.
Yeah. So I have a little note here that at one point, it's not really showing, but I thought I might have spotted Grogu's little Beskar shirt underneath.
Yep.
It was really, really subtle, but it looked like he had it on.
Just a couple of specific angles when looking through the cockpit window. Very specific angles only. Because we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was visible, and it may just be very, very subtle. Because he's got a very high collar, but it seems to be on under that. I don't know. At the time I spotted that, I didn't know if that would be a seed planted for later protection. Didn't transpire yet, but it might crop up.
But yes, we haven't yet. I mean, as we get to it, this episode could very well not entirely be over. It may
this encounter.
Yeah, it's not a cliffhanger per se. But it's not, the situation's not resolved.
More, yeah.
So he gets R5 to sort of run off and go do some
censoring.
Sort of testing the scanning the toxicity of the atmosphere. He wants to know if it's going to be safe to breathe, and he does not exit his ship.
Man, I was worried for R5 at that point, though, because
I know it felt
I really don't want them to waste the character. He's been around.
Yeah.
I mean, I had R5 as an action figure since 1979, I guess, and I don't want.
It would be a bit cruel for something that's been around for that long for him to just toddle off into the rocks and then get smashed and be like, "Oh man, that's all you kept him around for." And yeah, it does seem to be in jeopardy because as they are watching on their sort of sensor, he disappears. Mando's forced to have to go out and check himself.
Yeah, that was accompanied by a lot of static and interference. I wasn't completely stressed out at that point quite. It did look like it was just a lost transmission due to interference rather than lost because he was no longer functioning.
Yeah. So he tells Grogu to sort of seal himself in his pod and that he'll pressurize his helmet so he can go out. And check on R5. We see I see Grogu being more sort of emotive. We actually got quite a few scenes from sort of Grogu's perspective.
Yes,
in this episode,
conveying slightly more mature and sort of slightly more integrated thoughts.
Yeah.
Thoughts and interpretations.
He certainly he feels less selfish. He's concerned about Din Djarin, we see him sort of...
And he's definitely got a greater understanding of what's going on around him.
Yes. Because I know they have to be careful about sort of progressing his development too fast. But yeah, if he's stuck in sort of infant mode, then we won't really get any development of the character at all. So I think they're on a good pace here. It's a believable amount of improvement in his abilities. We'll go to Enclave Raid. So he walks into the cave trying to find R5. There's all these kind of green glows, very much reminiscent to that crystal that he showed the armor in the first episode. And then he is attacked. Now they do mention the name of these creatures. Bo-Katan knows the name of the creatures later on, but I didn't catch it.
No,
so I'll have to look that one up. Interesting, slightly humanoid, but they've got sort of a bigger face and looks like maybe multiple eyes.
Yeah,
it reminded me of something I want to say there's like a creature in, I want to say Jabba's palace that it kind of reminded me of, but now I don't remember what that was.
A little bit like a Whiffid, but
yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, something like that.
But definitely bulkier and more.
Yeah, very
aggressive.
primitive. They're they use just clubs, not blasters or anything like sophisticated.
The significance of Bo-Katan's comments was not the name itself, but the fact that they used to live in the wastelands behind the city. She said,
yeah,
the fact that they've come into the city ruins. She specifically said she wonders what else might have entered.
Might have survived. Yeah.
Survived and taken over the city ruins now that they're uninhabited by humans.
But Mando uses the Darksaber at this point, and we see that he's still struggling with it. He's not expert with it, because we haven't really seen him like practicing or anything like that yet. Not since Book of Boba Fett, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, he manages to defeat the attackers. He finds R5, who has just sort of been knocked over. Thankfully, he seems to be okay, and he takes him back to the ship. And during this point, he gets R5 to sort of display the his scan of the sort of atmosphere toxicity, and finds out that it's all fine. And then he says Bo-Katan was right, Mandalore is not cursed. And I think that this is interesting. He might be starting to, I want to see, like, it's going to be really complicated whether he ends up perhaps siding more or understanding or aligning with Bo-Katan. Yep. Because he's kind of seeing that some of what he's been taught in part of his clan, the Watch, isn't right. Because the armor is like, nope, it's cursed, you can't go there, it's not possible. And Bo-Katan's like, hey, that's not right. Same with the helmet thing.
We're talking about Bo-Katan a couple of times here, but it's jumping ahead just a tiny bit.
Yes. He's talked to her about it before. In the previous episode where he went to her, she's just like, no, whatever. No. There's no point.
Just in terms of, I'm just personally talking in terms of keeping my own.
Yes. So he finds that the air is breathable. So he's not going to take his helmet off, but at least he knows it's safe for Grogu. Because Grogu doesn't. There doesn't seem to be like a top dome to his little. I want to call it like a hover pod because it's not really a pram anymore. It's more of a chair. He seems to be sitting upright in it. We don't really see him lying down in it. So I'm just calling it a hover pod. It's a little bit more sort of ball-like.
Particularly the way it behaved, the way it functioned for the rest of the cookie box. So they battle the...
Aha! Sorry, keep going.
They battle the creatures, and when the Darksaber comes into play, as you say, Mando's not fluent with it, still a little bit clumsy, but it does come in use a couple of times because it cuts through the weapons as well.
Yeah.
It's suited for close range combat. And then they continue on down into the city. They go down into substantial depths, significant depths. Mando uses his jetpack.
Yeah.
Grogu uses the holopod.
Yeah, because when they're standing at the top, he says something like this: the Civic Center, which is the instructions that Bo-Katan gave him about where to find the mines, when he talked to her in the previous episode. So he uses his jetpack to go down, and Grogu's little hoverpod lowers him down as well. And as they're down the bottom, it was such a neat. I almost wanted them to explore a little bit more. There was something about it that reminded me of this game. Some of the maps and underground sort of locations and that scattered across different planets. I thought that was really fun. But as they're looking around, we see, I want to say, alligatory, crocodile type creatures.
Well, at first Mando gators, I want to call them. At first that's what they look like, but just jumping around a little bit. When they show up later, they've got wings.
Yes.
But yes, they didn't.
I didn't get that one.
Elongated bodies. I've got
all of the artifacts.
Yes, I need mining droids and overseers.
Get up my mudhorn.
Oh yeah, I've got a new Tertian. This particular jet pickup that I really like there. So yes, past the side entries, the alleyways, and caverns.
Yes, the significant part here is we're sort of seeing ruins. It looks like bits and pieces of the civilization. And then he spots what looks to be sort of the face of a Mando helmet in the dirt. And he pulls it out to have a look at it, and we sort of get the sort of, it sort of reminded me of, I don't know why, the footage from, like, in Titanic, where they're, like, using the underwater probe to, like, go through the ruins and sort of seeing the sort of bits and pieces that would have belonged to people and stuff like that, and you kind of get this sort of somber effect that you know that a lot of people died here. And then just as you're kind of thinking about that note, that's when everything turns upside down.
Giant trap has sprung.
Yeah.
Very brittle.
And I'm hoping to learn more about this creature, droid, device.
Well, I want to say cyborg because it does seem to be organic. I don't think that was a projected eye. I think it was.
Yeah.
There seem to be tubes and some sort of level of organic functioning going on. Could be wrong, but I got a bit of a General Grievous vibe, or at least a rudimentary one.
So a big droid is sort of like under the dirt, lying in wait. I guess it heard him or sensed something on the surface, perhaps. Maybe the fight with the other creatures alerted him to the presence. Still need overseers. There'll be a couple around this way.
Well, the trap when it was sprung looked like it was buried.
Yeah.
And it was, sort of a cage enveloped, and the droid came out from under the ground, or at least all the mech, whatever you know.
Yeah.
Looked very cool. Looked like bits of it looked like they were related to components of a probe droid.
Yeah.
In terms of the curves and protrusions.
Yeah, but it sort of captures Din in sort of like a cage.
Yep. A very tight, a very restrictive cage. He's pretty much sandwiched in there, so he can't use his arms or anything.
Yeah.
Can't access his weapons in particular.
Yeah. And obviously this is upsetting to Grogu, but he understands the danger because he doesn't sort of jump into action. He follows quietly. He's kind of sneaky. Yeah. Droid has Mando in a small cage, and it's piloted. When it gets to there, it kind of like secures the cage that Mando is trapped in, and the spidery cyborg kind of climbs out, which is just all kinds of ugh. It's so icky. One more overseer. Okay. Honestly, I get the feeling. Oh, you've got your hoverpod out. I get the feeling we are going to it's big for an interesting action figure. I'll say that. That droid. I should fight this fight before I start looking away at my notes. Let's see. It's taking all of his weapons off, and this is where I start freaking out because we see that it takes the Darksaber away from him.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, okay. I was starting to like wonder if we'd see like, I don't know, like Grogu try and pick it up or something. I thought maybe that's a bit much. And then it goes off, and Grogu approaches all the way up.
Yeah.
And tries to use the Force, and we kind of get like this little. I felt like there was like Force using music at this point.
Because what happened at that point, he was trying to move the mechanism that was encapsulating Mando, and he succeeds. So his telekinesis does have an effect, but the success makes quite a loud noise.
Yeah,
and it's only partial, so that alerts the freaky cyborg dude.
Yeah, comes back. So he sort of runs off, gets in his little hoverpod, and Din tells him to go. Because it's clear that he's not going to be able to have his be able to sort of take his time and help him get out. He basically says to go find Bo-Katan.
And I think there's a few significant things here. When we saw the map in the N1, it was clear that was it Calamar? Is that where she is?
I think so.
Yeah,
I'm not good with the names right now.
In close proximity, just a short hop across.
Yeah.
From Mandalore intentionally.
We'll go do Tradition Pirates.
And so yeah, very cute. So using his little hoverpod as a quite a functional, quite a useful little speeder, effectively.
Yeah.
Grogu gets back to the N1.
Well, we see that shot from the trailer where he's going to be ambushed by those first original creatures that attacked Mando, and we just get that sort of like, yeah, it wasn't protracted. He just kind of force pushes him out of the cave, and manages to get back in the N1 before the sort of alligators, the crocodiles, which are, I guess, more dragon-like.
Yeah. Oh yeah, one was chasing the N1, isn't it?
Yeah. It's sort of trying to get through to Grogu through the cockpit, and he is able to gesture to the sort of the map to where.
I think one thing that's standing out is that when Grogu uses the Force, even when it's significant, like attacking or defending, he's not falling asleep.
Yes. I hadn't actually thought about that. Oh, I'm actually getting a bit hurt here. Ouch.
Yeah, I am too. I wasn't expecting that. Oh, yeah, that's a lot of hurtings.
Are we fighting two different mobs at once, are we? No?
No, we're just a little bit out-leveled.
No, I don't think I've got very good gear on.
Might just be a tiny bit strategic with these particular ones.
Yeah.
One of the harder ones for the planet. I didn't bring I brought this companion out because he's a Mandalorian, not because he's
yeah. So we see that R5 does understand Grogu and pilots the N1 to the planet where to where Bo-Katan is.
A simple point, but I thought it was kind of cool that R5 being a navigator and capable of being a co-pilot was able, the plot points came together quite nicely, I thought. And
she's like mad because she sees the N1 fighter and thinks it's Din Djarin come back to sort of yet again sort of ask her about stuff and harass her, and she's like, I already told him, I want him to go away, because her droid has basically alerted him to the fact that there's somebody coming in. And she says, let's get rid of him once and for all. She's basically, I don't know, talking to herself or talking to the droid.
Yeah, to the droid, but she comes out, the consequence of that is that she comes out in full gear. She's got her backpack and helmet and everything on. Yeah,
and she says she wants to be left alone before she realizes that it's only Grogu. And she instructs her droid to get the last location. Like, she realizes that they must have flown straight there from wherever Din got into trouble. So she gets her sort of protocol droid. We see this like not in detail, but obviously the droid gets the location, figures it out that it was actually Mandalore, where something went wrong. And so we see her gauntlet fighter, where they're all loaded up and heading back to Mandalore.
Nice seeing the cockpit, and they had R5 and Grogu in the cockpit.
Yeah. And she says it didn't always look like this. She's sort of talking out loud, but to herself and to Grogu. Because as we go along in the episode, she talks a lot about Mandalore, because she's royalty. In the Book of Boba Fett, he calls her princess, because she is a princess of Mandalore. And she references that later on. We see her She gets Grogu to guide her because he obviously knows where Mando went. And R5 stays in the ship, so he is at least safe. So I felt a little less worried about him at this point. I felt like he was probably necessary because Grogu's not really talking in a way that a droid would be able to pass information on or translate or whatever. So it worked to sort of pass information along.
Stomach goal. Oh.
Sorry, I was looking at my notes. She gets to that same edge where Din Djarin looked down at the sort of civilization. Yeah, she takes the helmet off and says, "Beautiful civilization. Her family ruled it all, and now it's a tomb." So this is obviously sort of hard for her.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And she's talking to Grogu about it because Grogu is a foundling at this point, so I guess she feels like she's sort of teaching him, passing on knowledge of what happened there, because so many of them were sort of wiped out in the purge.
Yep. David's joining us in chat. Hey David, how's it going?
Yes.
We're deep in the minds of Mandalore, but we can cycle back around and talk about any other details once we get to the punchline.
Yeah. And so she jetpacks down to that sort of a layer where we see all the pipes and the little sort of dragon crocodile creatures. Yeah. And she says, "I know you're frightened, but I need you to guide me to Mando." She's got a light on the side of her helmet, which I'm not sure I've seen before. Small note.
No.
But it was obviously useful.
Yeah, well, because Mando's helmet doesn't have the light visible all the time, does it?
Yeah, I don't think.
Sometimes so they either are an attachment or they pop out somehow from a secret compartment. Like that.
And she starts talking about the Jedi here, which is interesting. Yeah, and this makes me want to go back and watch so much of the Clone Wars. Yeah, she doesn't actually mention anything. Because I don't know, I would have to go back and see if she actually ever meets Yoda face to face. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm probably getting she talks about
that's an interesting point. I'm not sure she's met Obi-Wan and Cody.
Yeah. But, sometimes my brain starts mixing up Rebels and Clone Wars, and I start to forget which is which for some of the episodes and things like that. And I'm just because she talks about fighting alongside the Jedi, and my brain thinks Clone Wars, but I know that there is also Jedi and Force sensitives and Rebels, because she knows Ahsoka, obviously. And she says, she basically says that she fought side by side, because obviously there's a lot of reference about how in the previous seasons how the Mandalorians and the Jedi were enemies because of
that's the only information Din's got from the armorer is
that they were
always
a race of sort of mystics that fought against the Mandalorians. Yeah.
That's an interesting omission on the armorer's behalf. Really, to represent them solely as enemies in that way.
Yeah. I'll go do Blackout.
Yep.
This is where we get to that trailer line. Did you think your dad was the only Mandalorian? And we find... Is this where she comes across the first creatures? Because I've got... if they survived, I wonder what else did too.
Yeah, it was during their just traversal of the passageways. She's just narrating to Grogu, and they pop out. No, she sees them in the roof moving around sort of in the translucent bit. She shoots the roof, they fall down, and she dispatches them pretty quick. They weren't. She catches them off guard, and before they can attack, she dispatches them. So it's a slightly different encounter, but it really was just to give her the opportunity to, posit the question: what else might have survived? And entered this
don't want to sort of I was kind of hoping they might lead something, and this was such a tease, like talking like that. They would know what people are thinking about, because the armorer keeps talking about the great mythosaur. I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna drip this out like for ages. And then we see the creepy droid cyborg thing.
Yep.
And she manages to get to the Darksaber.
Yeah, well, the significant thing just before that, I think if I'm getting my timelines, is that the droid has plugged
yes,
intravenous lines into it, and seems to be draining him of blood.
Yes, well, if it's got some organic matter, it's gonna need some organic source, like supplements or like some sort of fuel.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know whether it would generally try and trap the other creatures, the more humanoid ones with the perhaps it was trying to trap them.
We might not.
That's what it usually gets, perhaps. But not that we will get that. And then it looks like she kills it and it sort of falls over, and then as she sort of turns away, and then you realize that it's sort of playing, well, it can pull the head part with the eye off, and it sort of scuttles away like a crab, and it's just so gross. And then it manages to climb into the big mech body.
Yeah, still pilot the mech.
Yeah, and we sort of get around too, but she is able to. Oh, my thing just fell off the ledge.
Sorry.
The enemy I was fighting fell off the ledge.
Okay. Not your Ewok.
No, but it's down on the ground being annoying.
I see it. Oh, no, it's stuck halfway.
Okay. I'll do this. Thank you.
Oops. Oh, maybe shoot someone on the ground.
Made you, eh?
Oh, yeah. Well, I have a shot and picked up a mob on the ground. Yeah, to clean him up.
Okay. It's a lockbox back here. Hopefully it'll still work for you.
I'll wait for them. Where are you?
It's alright, I'm on the back.
Yeah, I'll let the mobs come to us.
Okay.
Yeah, so
it's a really interesting design, and I wonder if we'll get much more information about what it was. Like, was it humanoid? Is it intelligent? It was a bigger eye than a human. Because it kind of, like, just that sort of singular eye kind of filled a helmet-like space. So it felt like bigger than a human eye. But I don't know too much about some of the other sentient creatures that would have lived on Mandalore. I guess people will be doing research to figure out what it was. And I thought there might have been something about the fact that, you know, like technically the cyborg got the basically defeated Din, so it had the Darksaber, and then she defeated that with the Darksaber, and I'm like, does that mean she gets to keep it? But that wasn't really addressed in this episode.
Well, no, because Din took the Darksaber back once he got out of the cave. That chain of events definitely struck me as
a possibility.
Yeah.
And I also noted that she wields it much better than Din does.
Oh, effortlessly, basically.
Yeah. David says, I jumped when he got caught in the trap. I did too. I thought it was like this really sort of solemn moment as he's realizing that he's in the tomb where a huge amount of his people were massacred, and it's just like, yeah. It was a perfect moment for a jump scare like that, but it still caught me off guard. I should be better prepared for that sort of thing, but it was definitely a good moment. So yes, so she saved Mando's life, and he's now free from the metal cage.
So just to reiterate the exact sequence of events, he was barely able to speak, but
because he was being drained.
Yeah, but then he says behind you or something, because the cyborg head has gone back into the mech.
Yes, yeah. Warns her.
Yeah, she has to defeat that before she can release him.
Yeah.
Anyway, from that point they seem to get back to the drop off, so away from all the creatures and such like.
Yeah. He's out. Yeah. She said something like pog soup.
Yep.
And seems a little bit taken aback that he's never had it before, because she says, oh, basically, Mandalorians are raised on this since they were very young. And he does that sort of thing where he like lifts his helmet just a tiny amount to eat without taking his helmet off. He's still committed. Can't take his helmet off completely. And he wants to continue to the mines, to the living waters, and he says something along the lines of, without the creed, what are we? Because she's basically like, why are you still doing this? Yeah, because she just wants to go back. She's like, okay, I rescued you, let's go home, I'll take you back home. Seems surprised that he wants to keep going.
Well, I was a little surprised, because at that point the N1 is on her planet, not Mandalore.
She'd have to take all of them back in her fighter, which I guess is doable.
But if they get separated, he's got nowhere to get off planet.
Yes, yeah. So she knows that if he's going to continue, she basically has to stick around and wait for him. So she's like, okay, I'll take you. And he almost seems a little bit, I think she just wants to prove a point at this point, because he almost seems surprised. I mean, not that you can see his face, but I get the impression he was surprised at her agreement, because she is given off a very cynical, leave me alone vibe. She just wants nothing more to do with him, and he seems a bit surprised. But yeah, I guess she's just and she says, don't thank me until you've seen them, because she knows that they're pretty much all destroyed. And they talk about how the fact that it wasn't that long ago. They're like, by the ruins you think this was centuries ago or something like that, because it just looks so sort of dead of all life. And it says what pains her now is, because I think he says something like, it must hurt to see it like this, and she says what pains her is seeing Mandalorians fight each other.
Yeah. I think that's good as well.
Which she didn't seem like too upset by it at the start when Cosca Reeves and Boba Fett fight. I can't remember who it is that interrupts that fight. I don't know whether it is Bo-Katan herself or Mando. When they sort of had that brawl in the bar. When she sort of takes offense to him sort of wearing Mandalorian armor when he's a clone and all that kind of stuff. She says something like, smashed by the fist of the Empire. And they reach the mine entrance, and then she's talking about her family in this part, which I think is useful, a little bit of a catch-up for anybody that hasn't seen the animated shows that cover these parts of her story. Yep. And she talks very fast. I wasn't able to write everything down, but basically that she's part of the royal family, talking about reciting the creed, accepting gifts, and that her father died defending Mandalore.
Yes, so what I took from that is that she understands that there's a lot of Mandalorian tradition, but she just sees it as sort of being a tradition, not something that should be quite as rigidly guiding. Which I think is a interesting distinction. She still acknowledges that the origins of the creed. Just that it doesn't have to be as rigid as some of the followers adhere to it.
Yeah. David says, Bo certainly handled the Darksaber well, and I agree that's how she gets it back. Yeah. I'm hoping that possibly gets addressed in the next episode, that's not sort of lingering.
Well, yeah, I kind of thought that would be a reasonable way just to resolve that loose thread.
I think perhaps it will need to be more dramatic, or sort of, I don't know, perhaps more
the alternative
honorable?
Is she has to take it off Dimstall.
Yeah.
In order to avoid a fight.
I don't know if they're building it up to just have Din be the leader. I don't know.
Or everybody just everybody just to forget the old ways and start the new ways.
Yeah, it's going to be, perhaps a little unexpected how they will handle that sort of situation. Because we know that Bo-Katan's associates, Koska Reeves and Axe Woves, basically abandoned her when she wasn't able to get the Darksaber back. So we know that Mandalorians still revere it. Even though their civilization's basically crumbled. It's in ruins, I mean, literally and figuratively. So when she says that her father died defending Mandalore, Din just sort of responds by saying, "This is the way."
Yeah, I think that was just a note of respect.
Yes, yeah. That it was perhaps sort of the honourable thing to do, or as you say, like a mark of respect. And then we sort of get a little bit more of Bo-Katan's cynical side here, because they reach the living waters and she's like, see, look, it's just, bombed and stuff. And there's a plaque off to one side, which I wasn't expecting. But it was kind of interesting because it gave her an excuse or a reason, exposition or whatever, for her to sort of read a little sort of plaque commemorating sort of the history of the mines and the living waters and stuff like that. And it's basically talking about the first Mandalore the Great, that sort of entered the waters, that these waters were once a mythosaur lair, and something about adopting the mythosaur as the signet, and that's why the mythosaur skull is sort of the Mandalorian symbol, as it were.
That was... It's kind of interesting that I find the whole mythosaur lore kind of interesting. That it goes, it's cropped up a few times, and it goes back quite deep into history.
Yeah,
and we've kind of been hoping that there might be a mythosaur that survived, but it is quite a Loch Ness monster type leap to the notion that it's been around this whole time. See how it pans out in the long run. But we can do Corellia on these.
Oh, we can do Corellia is very short.
Okay.
We'll do Voss.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm scrolling through the planets. What were you just saying?
I don't know. It's just rambling a little bit about the mythosaur lore and the amount of times it comes up, and the notion that everyone thinks it's been extinct for a long time. It's got a bit of a Loch Ness vibe to it.
Yes.
But yeah, it was interesting that the plaque did clear up a few things, like the mine. I don't think we knew explicitly that the mines
were a mythosaur lair.
A mythosaur lair.
No.
Historically, and that they had.
Yeah. So we see Din sort of gets straight to business. He takes off all sort of extra bits, his cape, his jetpack, his blasters, and just starts sort of reciting sort of like a... It felt very formal. It sort of felt like he was sort of reciting some sort of formal apology, some sort of creed that he sort of believes. I didn't write it down.
No, I wasn't sure if it's something traditional or if he just felt motivated to...
Yeah, to sort of make it a very solemn, very sincere moment.
To honor the moment, yeah.
Yeah, and not just go, I'm sorry, I'm atoned, and all that kind of stuff. Yes. And then we were having a little bit of a discussion about this. Just as he seems to be finishing saying what he wanted to say, he is like hoofed under the water. And we're not sure if this was supposed to imply that he basically stepped off by accident and falls into not realizing that it is very deep, or that something pulls him. And I'm a little bit torn. We even kind of watched it. We quickly wound it back and watched it twice, and we're not actually 100% sure even after watching it twice.
Happy for it to be either way.
Yeah.
My reasoning that he just fell, and happy to be wrong, is that he specifically took off his jetpack, and but he's still wearing all this heavy armor.
Yeah, all this Beskar, which we assume is heavy like a metal.
In contrast, when Bo-Katan jumps in, she retains her backpack and she's able to use it underwater.
Yeah.
So I think it is I think it was just straightforward that he fell.
It just seemed like sort of like a weird mistake for him to make. That you wouldn't just sort of make sure that there's nothing under your foot before putting all of your weight forward on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like they go underwater very often in their gear.
When I saw him disappear, I thought, dying over in the trash compactor.
Yeah, I think that's possibly why my brain went in that direction.
Right. I agree. That's exactly what I thought. But then we didn't see anything.
Not immediately around him, no.
And when he was found on the bottom, there was nothing.
But he was just lying there. Like, if you fell, wouldn't you be like struggling or something? Like, I felt like something like I don't know, like knocked him out or something when it grabbed him, because he's just lying on the bottom.
He was, but
I don't know if that's just because his arm is too heavy and he can't move up or something. Yeah. So of course, obviously, as he disappears under the water, Bo-Katan's fully kitted up, so she jumps into the water after him with her jetpack and her light, and she swims down, jetpacks down to the bottom and finds him. Manages to grab him, and as they are sort of traveling upwards towards the surface, this is where we get to the big reveal of the episode, which is, of course, a big creature that looks very, very familiar. We see its eye open, because I was like, ooh, is this going to be like a skull or something like that? They're going to, give us like, oh, yes, this was a mythosaur there, and here's a big skull, and they're going to like ponder about what that might mean or something like that. But no, we see its eye. We see its eye move, so we know it's very, very much alive. We see its horns, and it turns its head and kind of like slowly swims away in the shadows. And it is...
You don't quite see its full form.
No.
Not yet.
But it is so very recognizable to all fans that it is a mythosaur. So we know that this is still a mythosaur lair, that perhaps this will have a great implication. If either Bo-Katan or Din, or perhaps the two of them together, because I don't know whether this series will ever introduce another romantic interest for Din Djarin. We had a little moment of it when he met I don't remember if they gave the character a name. I'm pretty sure she has a name, but I don't remember off the top of my head. The fishing village, where they farm like the little blue krill shrimp, and he sort of seems to be obviously open to the idea of finding love.
Oh, he's back then, coming back. He definitely contemplated, but he was, probably wasn't safe at that point. He wasn't ready to talk down and give up the creed.
So I'm not completely averse to the idea of him teaming up with Bo-Katan for longer. But it is definitely interesting. And when she gets to the surface, we sort of see, or hear, I should say, Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, I think he's coughing or something like that, because he's obviously out of the water and that. But she's still got her helmet on, but the way she kind of leans over, you can imagine what her face is, that she's kind of reeling with the fact, because she saw it, and I don't think Din Djarin saw it.
And when she saw it, there was these puffs of bubbles out of her helmet, like she kind of
gasped, or just kind of,
certainly exclaimed.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to cleanse the corrupted. So I've got, she gets Din to the surface. Yeah, she sees the eye of a mythosaur. It turns and swims away, and she gets him to the surface, and that was where I finished writing my notes, because I was like, I need to go back and watch that again, because that was very, very dramatic, and perhaps not the most biggest surprise. There has certainly been a lot of hints that this could be where the series might be going. But I think it's one that, personally for me, I'm very, very excited about. I'm happy that they're going there. I don't like it when there seems like something would be really cool, it seems like it would be fitting, and then writers just decide to do something completely left field just for the sake of being unpredictable. It's fun when it feels like a genuine, interesting plot point, not just let's throw this in the mix just to confuse people. And I like that there was hints. Certainly, I think most fans were curious to see if they would go there, and I like that they didn't keep us waiting. I honestly thought they might string this out that his quest
Well,
to
it's a
sort
big
of
deal.
like now he's redeemed. He went in the living waters. He might have needed help to get back out of the water, but he did it.
Ultimately, I think the end game is for the Mandalorians to reunify.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a mechanism for that because if they've got strongly conflicting viewpoints, and the mythosaur might be the component of
but the unification of the Mandalorian clans, I thought that might be something that would be like in game for the whole Mandalorian series, you know?
Yeah,
that they would just kind of slowly follow his progress through like different side quests and things like that.
Because here's the thing, John Favreau's been talking a lot in the last week or so, doing
promoting this,
and he said season 4 is written. and in pre-production, and season 5 is on the cards, and season 4 will only be like the middle chapter of a bigger story. So that may be spread across a few different series, but there's a lot going to be coming down the pipeline yet. So the bigger stories, and whether or not we do get lots of different Mandalorians coming together or not.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, I was just so taken aback and rewound it. I didn't actually check to see if there was a after credits scene. I mean, there generally isn't.
No.
But I just, to be honest, I didn't actually check because we round it back and watched that sort of final scene again to catch, because there's a lot of talking and just to actually see that final scene where he enters into the water, because that was just so cool. I had to definitely watch that again very, very quickly to just enjoy that moment. But yeah, this is just, everyone's going to be talking about this. This is going to be one of those episodes where you want to see it organically without getting spoiled. There's going to be pictures of this thing everywhere. I think it's just so exciting. And the episode just ends there. We don't know how these two characters and Grogu are going to like deal with this information. You know? Are they going to try and like...
Yeah.
Is he going to go back to his clan and go, hey, I bathed in the water and I found a mythosaur. How about that? Or like, you know, tell them that Mandalore's not cursed. It's not toxic. You can go back there if you want. Like, are they going to immediately do something on this planet? Are they going to go investigating it? Or I don't know what. Like, how the next couple of episodes are going to pan out after this. This is pretty sort of like shocking. I mean, it's gone back all the way back to Quill when he was basically telling off Din Djarin for sort of giving up on trying to ride the Blurg, and he was like, "You rode the great mythosaur." I was like,
ancestors,
yeah. So they didn't kill them per se. They, you know, rode them. And not to constantly bring up the analogy, but like in Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, where he unites the clans and sort of becomes a leader by managing to semi-tame and ride the sort of great mythical beast. So I could see an element of there. Obviously, they probably don't want to copy that too much, though it is all owned by Disney these days, so I guess they don't actually mind too much. Both got out of ribbons. But I want to see more of it. I want to see it out.
Yeah, well, as far as we know, the mythosaur is not a purely water-dwelling creature. So yeah, that's going to get interesting.
Yeah. Like, because we only really see its face. We don't know if it's got like, I don't know, because if there were any renditions of it, we'll go to Rock Eaters. If there were any artwork of it prior to this, I think it would kind of be rendered like the Crate Dragon. If there were artwork versions in different sort of books and things like that, you know, like there were lore books back in the days, you know, they're like, here's what these things look like, and they wrote sort of, you know, in-world information. If there was artwork about Crate Dragons, the version that we see in The Mandalorian when he teams up with the Tuskens and Cobb Vanth, that would be different now, and I think the same would be about the Mythosaur, that any information or artwork about it would be overridden for the sake of this being now the official concept. So we don't necessarily know. We know that the creature that Boba Fett was depicted riding in the holiday special kind of has flippers.
Yeah.
So that's more of a water-based creature, or at least swampy or such, like
specifically,
not legs.
Yeah, they did specifically acknowledge that, because at one point when Boba Fett's been introduced to the Rancor, he said he's tamed larger beasts.
Yes. Which
David
felt like a
Chat-
nod to that, yeah.
David in chat said, I hope with some praise R5 finds his courage kind of like Ryan.
Oh, yes. I kind of want him to stick with Mando. Like, I know the bubble for Grogu is cute, but we have seen the fact that he can basically sit on Grogu on Din Djarin's lap, and having a droid would be useful. It would be like a coming full circle moment for Din as well, to not just basically despising droids and not letting them anywhere near him, to the fact that he's actually got one to help. You know, still want to see him with IG, but you know, he can have more than one.
Well, maybe Grogu will bond with R5 as well, because
Yeah.
they did have a communication moment in terms of going to get Bo-Katan.
Yes.
But either way, R5 is definitely turning out to be the hero of the story arc, even if he's reluctant and hesitant.
Yeah.
Without him, he wouldn't have got off the planet.
Yeah, he went off into the wilderness to go help.
Grogu couldn't have fetched Bo-Katan by himself.
No, he was a very crucial point to that story. David also says, I want a Mythosaur figure and an N1 with an R5 unit now. I will not rest. Yep. Hasbro needs to buck up and do some more toys. Like,
Hasbro's definitely going to do a Mando version of the N1. That's on the cards.
Where's a Book of Boba Fett Rancor? Like, come on, there's so many things they could be doing, and they're just being very, very slow. But yeah, a Mythosaur, that would just like I kind of hope they wouldn't do it as a HasLab project. But if they did, I think that would surpass the Black Series Rancor idea that they had. Especially if they did it in the 3/4 inch scale. And I dare say that, searches for Mythosaur anything are going to go up. There's not too much. It's generally just used as an image on like t-shirts and stuff like that. I know that there's like necklace versions, because Din Djarin gives Grogu a sort of a Mythosaur skull pendant necklace when he thinks that he's not going to see him again.
It's funny how it's all stemmed just from a random emblem that
somebody painted on armor way back when. And it's kind of built into this really interesting thing. But I think Disney knows they have such a money maker with the show. Some cynics might say that it's a bit of fan service by giving people what they want, but this is a cool character, and if there was somebody that's going to help bring about because I get the feeling like I guess some fans might argue that Boba Fett should have been the sort of the hero character that would be given this task. We'll go to the last one. David says, stop Kristy, my wallet begs you low. There's so many cool things Hasbro could do. But I feel like Boba Fett is always so closely tied to mercenaries, whereas, yes, that is how we meet Din Djarin, but one of the first things he does is he rescues Grogu back. And he seems a lot more formal and sort of, honor-bound than...
easier to tie Mando into the Mandalorian creed than it would be to sort of somehow suggest that all along, all this time, Boba Fett has actually been following the Mando creed.
Yeah,
To the same
yeah. So I feel like
work.
somebody that was raised in the culture, like Boba Fett has a connection, you know, he's got the armor because his father was and stuff like that, but he wasn't raised in that sort of culture, not to the same extent because he wasn't raised for very long. Too soon. You know, he's, I don't know how, 10-ish when Django meets his fate.
Based on the age of Daniel Logan, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, so he's basically by himself and with other bounty hunters and whatnot from that point. So he's not, yeah, I feel like, while he is obviously a legacy character, a beloved character, I feel like the setup for Din Djarin, and his, I mean, he is taking this whole apostate thing so seriously. He's just seems very hell-bent on getting to Mandalore. So I feel like he's very well set up to be something that is very, very important in restoring the sort of the glory of Mandalore. I don't know how else best to put it, sort of like the honor, you know, reclaim their home, get the clans together. I mean, we saw his clan is basically, they look like they're living in a cave.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And we're talking about this sort of once great civilization, and we're seeing it all in ruins and stuff like that. And it's like they're living in caves and hiding. And
I think the reference to Mandalore the Great being the first Mandalore and the first Mandalorian, I think is significant because it does kind of conjure up this notion that the entire culture did stem from an individual
leading them.
Yeah, and that has happened in the past, and that may be a way forward.
Yeah, a big
as well.
Sort of cultural reset, and he will be like a new Mandalore. Will we see him sort of take, because in the expanded universe, we certainly see it referenced. I mean, there are Mandalores in the SWTOR where each one takes on, it's like Mandalore the Vindicator, Mandalore the, you know, blah, blah, blah. That each one has their own sort of title. The SWTOR character of Shay Vizsla, is she the Vindicator? My brain wants
I can't remember similar.
I can't remember. Yeah, but there's, hang on, wait, don't fight the next one. I can probably do a quick search in collections because there is, we've got Mandalore the Indomitable, Mandalore Ultimate, Mandalore the Preserver, and Shay Vizsla's one. Those are just other bits and pieces. Yeah, so because there's a few gear in the game based on different Mandalores, based on sort of old comics and things like that. Preserver, Indomitable, and Ultimate, and I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on it, but I think Shay Vizsla is Mandalore the Vindicator? Yeah, anyway. But it would be interesting to see if they go that route. And then he would be Mandalore the something. Unifier, maybe?
It's not bad, yeah.
Yeah. It would be interesting. And I think that would be so cool. I know I'm a little bit torn because I think it would be cool to see Bo-Katan get sort of redeemed. She obviously feels like she was a leader, and you know, it's not great seeing something that,
well, I almost think that whatever happens, it's going to have to be a joint project, between them.
Yeah, she obviously knows way more about the history and the culture and everything like that than he does. You know, she makes that comment like, you've never had this soup, come on, you know, you didn't grow up on this planet, you grew up on the moon, you know, like, it's kind of clear that he's not, because he's been isolated with the Watch, he's not as, because they were sort of, not outcasts, but like a very sort of offshoot, compared to sort of the mainstream Mandalorian clans.
Yeah.
So I feel like he needs help. He didn't even really seem to know what the Darksaber was or its importance, you know? He's just like, here, take it. And she's like, no.
No, there's definitely a cultural separation between the mainland and the Concordian moon.
So I do wonder if that means like whether he would ever get to the point of accepting that you don't have to keep your helmet on. Even having gone through this whole thing to kind of redeem himself. Which just kind of seems like a funny, like if you think back in the day, if you had believed that taking your helmet off and then bathing in the waters, you just like, oh, just like go back downstairs, bathe in the waters, come back up, and then I can hang out with my buddies, take my helmet off, go back down, redeem myself, like like
it's like a morning ablutions.
Yeah, you just go wash yourself in the living waters and back up you go. Like a regular thing.
Some entrepreneur could set up a plumbing system and
yeah, just plumb it all throughout the city so everyone can wash in it. Yeah. I guess we covered everything, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we got to the end. We got to the mythosaur.
Yeah. All right, quick travel. I'm just going to quick travel back to the Imperial District.
All right.
I don't think there was any other sort of... Well, as much as I could scramble in my notes from the episode.
No.
I know there's always something that you just kind of... That isn't necessarily happening on screen, but something you think about having sort of absorbed it for a while, but I don't know that that's necessarily going to spring to mind right now. I covered all the sort of... I think that mythosaur face is going to be the only thing that people are going to be thinking about for a while. And I wonder if there is any merch ready to go. Because, I mean, Celebration's coming up. But sometimes I feel like they deliberately don't make any merch so nothing can be leaked through the various developmental process for merchandise. So, you know, nobody in some random toy office can steal pictures and go put them on the internet or something like that and go, oh, I've got proof. So perhaps we'll see a few things announced. Because we certainly haven't seen anything in sort of like any of the pipeline reveals from Hasbro or anything like that. So, but I dare say we'll see a few Mythosaur Skull t-shirts.
Well, we're going to see some Mythosaur for creatures.
Yeah.
Represented somewhere.
Yeah. But I wonder how my brain is just trying to rack. Like, are they going to like go swimming down to try and find it? And if like, is there a way of like enticing it out of the water and onto the land? You know, like, are they going to like jump on its back and train it? Is there going to be like some sort of force bond or something like that? Is Grogu going to have a part to play in all of this and somehow? And it's going to be the three of them working together? Oh, golly. My mind is just absolutely scrambling, trying to figure out where they can go from this and where they're going to take the storyline. Get up my mud horn.
Even heard like one.
You've heard?
Well, I've heard a few bits and pieces, and some of them relate to other threads, but I still really don't know where it's going to go at this point. And that's fun. I'm looking forward to next week.
Yeah. Because I thought, I mean, we know that the scientist...
President just been passed out of blue.
We know that the scientist was in the trailer, so we know that is going to crop up at some point. I don't want to get too much into speculation, but there seems to have been at least some, perhaps, confirmation from Giancarlo Esposito that he would be in this season in some capacity. Perhaps even if he's just being interrogated by Republic officers, are like, what were you trying to do? What are you trying to do? I still want to see him again, even in a minor capacity in this season. But yeah, I get the feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of different Mandalorians. We certainly saw a lot more gathered together with his clan under the Armorer and Paz Vizsla. It'll be really interesting to see if those go back to Mandalore and we suddenly start seeing a lot on the planet.
There's a lot of, just talking about last week's episode, there was a lot of discussion about the kid that was being inducted as possibly being Paz Vizsla's son. because of the colors he was wearing and because of because of where Paz Vista was positioned and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting one.
That kid, I forget his first name. Surname's Kimmel. He's actually related to Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh, he is. I wondered that.
He's the same kid, apparently, that played the young Tusken Raider in that Book of Boba Fett episode. Do you remember?
Oh, yes. For the eggs? Yeah, and he doesn't make it. Sad. Yeah. David says, I think they may treat it as a god and unify the clans. Yeah. I think that would be pretty cool. We know that they are deep in sort of
it's been
heritage and tradition and the
cornerstone of their lore.
Yeah, because every time they show like the armor is sort of forged, there's always like this big shiny metal mythosaur skull over the doorway, or like on the wall or something like that. Like they still use it as kind of like a mark, something that sort of notes Mandalore.
The story that Bo-Katan was reading, what it's essentially saying, she was talking of a time when there was only one culture, where there weren't splinter philosophies, and it was at that point where everything was just one and everybody was in agreement about what it all meant. It was at that point in time that they adopted the mythosaur as the symbol for the entire planet and culture, not just for the signet of Mandalore the Great. So yeah, it's definitely carries a lot of weight and speaks of a simpler time where there was no internal conflict. It's got all the ingredients, so we just got to see how the writers and how the Filoni and Favreau, how they stir up the ingredients.
I'm sure they've got some very exciting episodes. You know that they're like putting little things in there that fans will really like. References. I mean, we already got a little bit of IG. We got, I don't remember the species names, but Babu Freak. R5D4. We've got pit droids and the Bunta Eve reference, and just lots of like. We're only 2 episodes in and we're getting all these little fun little goodies and things like that. Characters returning, and lots of lore. I know that there was a certain amount of exposition lore that had to be kind of gotten through very quickly, considering that putting Peli's sort of Tatooine scenes aside, we essentially had Bo-Katan and Din Djarin basically talking to Grogu just under the guise of teaching him history, but are basically getting through a lot of lore that casual fans that are just finding Star Wars through The Mandalorian don't necessarily know, and they're sort of catching them up about why this is important, what this means and stuff like that. So there was a certain amount of exposition, but I think it was done in a reasonable way. He is young, but we can see him sort of taking on and learning. So I think they did it pretty well. But I certainly couldn't keep up trying to write down everything they were saying. And that made it a little tricky. But I'm definitely keen to go watch it again. I think that's definitely one that can be enjoyed multiple times. And oh golly, I can't wait till next week. And we've also got The Bad Batch to go watch as well.
Right, yeah, so on that note, I might be trying to head off and do that.
Yeah. Just as David says, I don't think anyone will hunt it, but now it exists, law will give them hope. Yes, yes, that's a good point. That now that they're like, if they think that it is still alive, then that may, be a sort of a spiritual awakening. That they're like, if it could survive, then so can Mandalorians, and sort of rally them together. And Pele is such a dirtbag. Love her. Yeah, she's so fun. I love seeing her scenes.
It's funny how keenly the pit droids were sort of conspiring with her when one of them ran up the steps to look to make sure the radium was gone before the Taris came in. Yeah,
I think it's fun. Very sort of Tatooine sort of vibes, the whole sort of, I know it was Mos Eisley, the whole sort of, scum and villainy, It's
kind of scam or be scammed.
A planet that's populated by Jawas that are always looking to sort of, pinch things, make money. I think it's kind of fitting, and working with the Jawas to scam people was kind of funny. But yeah, I guess we'll call it there for tonight. We could probably keep talking a long time, but I think we'll just keep reiterating ourselves and saying we can't wait to see the next episode. And sadly, they're only like a week apart, which seems like not a lot, but too long at the same time. So, yep, thanks for joining us in chat or just following along. We had so much fun chatting about this episode. We'll be streaming tomorrow night at a similar time, recounting the Bad Batch episode that's just aired. All of our streams will be archived on our YouTube channel. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Catch you either tomorrow or next week for the next episode of The Mandalorian. And as always, may the Force be with you.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, check out our other videos, and subscribe for alerts about new uploads. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.